My name is Sarah Mitchell and I'm 32 years old. 2 days ago, I sat across from my parents in my living room as they read a letter written in crayon by my 7-year-old daughter Emma during her cancer treatment. The letter was dated 8 months ago, written on a particularly bad day during chemotherapy when she was sick and scared and asking questions I couldn't answer. Dear Grandma and Grandpa, Emma had written in her shaky 6-year-old handwriting. Where are you? Mommy says you're busy, but I'm scared and I want you here. Don't you love me anymore? Did I do something bad? The medicine makes me throw up a lot, and my hair fell out, and I look funny, but I'm still me. Please come visit. I miss you so much. Love, Emma. My mother read the letter and started crying. My father's hands shook holding the crayon-marked paper. Sarah, we didn't know she felt like this, my mother said, her voice breaking. We thought it was better to stay away. We didn't want to make things harder for you. You didn't want to make things harder for yourselves, I said quietly. You abandoned your granddaughter during the worst experience of her life because watching a child go through cancer was too difficult for you. Well, living through it was pretty difficult too. And she needed you. And you chose not to be there. So now, I'm choosing. You can leave and never contact us again. Because Emma survived cancer. She doesn't need to survive your conditional love too. Before I tell you how my parents' abandonment during my daughter's cancer treatment led to permanently cutting them from our lives, please like and subscribe if you enjoy these stories. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Now let me tell you how the worst year of my life revealed exactly who I could count on, and how the people who should have been there proved they never really were. I'm a single mother living in Denver, Colorado. I have one daughter, Emma, who just turned 7 last month. Her father, my ex-husband David, left when Emma was 2 years old. He decided fatherhood wasn't for him, signed away his parental rights, and moved to California to find himself. I haven't heard from him in 5 years except for the occasional child support check that comes irregularly. So it's been just Emma and me for most of her life. I work as a dental hygienist making $58,000 a year. It's not a lot, but it's enough for us to live modestly. We have a small 2-bedroom apartment, a reliable used car, and a life we'd built together that felt complete even though it was just the two of us. My parents, Robert and Linda Harrison, live 20 minutes away in a suburb of Denver. They're retired, both in their early 60s, financially comfortable. My father worked in insurance for 40 years. My mother was a stay-at-home mom who raised me and my younger brother. They've always been involved grandparents to Emma. Weekly visits, babysitting when I needed it, birthday parties, holidays together. Emma adored them. Called them every few days just to chat. Drew them pictures constantly. They were a huge part of her life and mine. Then 14 months ago, everything changed. Emma started getting tired easily. Bruising from minor bumps. Complaining that her legs hurt. I took her to the pediatrician thinking it was growing pains or maybe she needed more iron in her diet. The doctor ran blood tests. Called me back. The same day. Sarah, Emma's blood work shows some concerning abnormalities. We need to see a pediatric oncologist immediately. Today if possible. Oncologist. Cancer doctor. My 6-year-old needed a cancer doctor. The next 72 hours were a nightmare of tests and biopsies and specialists. Then the diagnosis, acute lymphoblastic leukemia. A cancer of the blood and bone marrow. Treatable, they said. Good prognosis for children her age, they said. But still cancer. Still chemotherapy. Still a 2 to 3 year treatment protocol. Still my baby fighting for her life. I called my parents from the hospital after we got the diagnosis. Mom, it's cancer, I said, crying so hard I could barely speak. Emma has leukemia. We're starting chemotherapy. Next week. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I need help. I need you and Dad. Please. Oh my God, my mother said, her voice shocked. That's just terrible. We'll come to the hospital right now. We need to see Emma. We need to talk about this. They came to the hospital that evening. Stayed for maybe an hour. Held Emma, who didn't really understand what was happening yet. Hugged me. Cried. Said all the right things about fighting and being strong and how Emma would beat this. Then they left and I didn't hear from them for 3 days. When I finally called, my mother answered but sounded distant. Sarah, your father and I have been talking. This situation with Emma, it's just so overwhelming. We've been doing some research about childhood cancer and the treatment is so intense. So difficult. We're not sure we can handle watching Emma go through that. It's too much for us emotionally. We think it might be better if we step back a bit. Give you space to focus on her treatment without worrying about us. Step back? I asked, not understanding. Mom, I need help. I need you to watch Emma when I have to work. I need you to come to appointments with us. I need you to just be there. I can't do this alone. We'll help financially, my father's voice came on the line. He picked up another phone. We can send money for medical bills, for whatever you need. But being at the hospital, watching Emma suffer through chemotherapy, seeing her that sick. Sarah, we just can't do it. It's too hard. We're not strong enough for that. You understand, don't you? No, I said, my voice breaking. I don't understand. She's your granddaughter. She's 6 years old. She has cancer. And you're choosing not to be there because it's hard for you? Don't make this about us being bad people, my mother said defensively. We love Emma. But we have to protect our own mental health. Watching a child go through cancer treatment is traumatic. We're not equipped to handle that trauma. We think it's better for everyone if we maintain some distance until she's through the worst of it. The worst of it is 2 to 3 years of treatment, I said. You're planning to be absent for 2 to 3 years? We'll stay in touch, my father said. We'll call, we'll send gifts, but we can't be there physically. They hung up. I stood in my apartment holding the phone, trying to process what had just happened. My parents had abandoned us. Their granddaughter had cancer, and they'd decided it was too emotionally difficult for them to be involved. They'd chosen their comfort over Emma's need for family support, over my need for help during the worst crisis of my life. If you've ever been abandoned by family during a medical crisis, if you've ever discovered that people you thought you could count on disappeared when things got hard, leave a comment below. Subscribe if you want to hear how my parents' abandonment became permanent after my daughter's recovery. Because what happened over the next 14 months showed me exactly who my real family was, and it wasn't the people who shared my DNA. Emma started chemotherapy the following week. It was brutal. She was sick constantly from the medications. Her hair fell out within the first month. She lost weight. She missed school. She spent weeks at a time in the hospital during intensive treatment phases. There were infections that required emergency hospitalizations. There were days when she was so sick she couldn't get out of bed. There were nights when I held her while she cried and asked why this was happening to her, why she had to be sick, why she couldn't just be a normal kid. My parents kept their word about sending money. A check for $2,000 arrived every month like clockwork. But that was it. No visits. No calls to Emma. When I'd call them to update them on her treatment, the conversations were short and uncomfortable. How's Emma doing? She's having a hard week. The chemo made it. Her really sick. She's asking for you. That's hard. We're thinking of you both. Let us know if you need anything. I need you to visit. I need you to be here. We just can't right now, Sarah. It's too difficult for us. But we're sending money. That should help. They sent gifts occasionally, toys and books delivered to our apartment, always with cards signed Love, Grandma and Grandpa, but never with personal messages. Never with anything that acknowledged what Emma was going through. Just generic gifts like you'd send to any child on any occasion. Emma noticed their absence immediately. Where are Grandma and Grandpa? She asked during her second round of chemo. Why don't they visit anymore? They're really busy right now, sweetheart. I lied, not knowing what else to say. But they love you very much. They think about you all the time. Can I call them? Maybe in a few days when you're feeling better. But when she felt better and we'd call, my parents wouldn't answer. Or they'd answer and keep the conversation brief, saying they had somewhere they needed to be, promising to call back later. They never called back. By month 3 of treatment, Emma stopped asking about them as frequently. By month 6, she rarely mentioned them at all. She'd lost so much already, her hair, her energy, her normal childhood, her sense of safety. Losing her grandparents too was just one more thing cancer had taken from her. Meanwhile, other people stepped up in ways I never expected. My coworker Jessica, who I'd only known for 2 years, organized a meal train so I didn't have to cook dinner for months. My neighbor Tom, a retired teacher, offered to drive Emma to appointments when I had to work. My childhood friend Rachel, who'd moved to Denver 3 years ago and who I'd kind of lost touch with, showed up at the hospital one day and said, "I'm here. Tell me what you need." She became my person through all of it. Sitting with Emma during long chemo infusion so I could go to work for a few hours. Staying overnight at the hospital during the scary time so I could go home and shower. Bringing coffee and food and just being present. "Where's your family?" Rachel asked one day in the hospital cafeteria after a particularly brutal treatment week. "Your parents, your brother? Why aren't they here helping? They can't handle it," I said simply. "They're sending money but they can't be here emotionally. It's too hard for them to watch Emma go through this." Rachel stared at me. "That's the most selfish thing I've ever heard. She's 6 years old with cancer and they can't handle it. You're her mother dealing with this alone and they can't handle it. That's not family. That's cowardice." She was right. But what could I do? I couldn't force my parents to be present. I couldn't make them overcome their discomfort. I could only focus on Emma and getting her through treatment, one day at a time. The treatment protocol lasted 13 months total. 13 months of chemotherapy in different phases. Intensive treatment, consolidation treatment, maintenance treatment, countless hospital stays. Dozens of procedures. More difficult days than I can count. But Emma fought through all of it with a courage I didn't know humans could possess, let alone 6-year-old humans. And finally, her scans came back clear. "Emma's in remission," her oncologist told us with tears in her eyes. "The cancer is gone. She'll need continued monitoring and she'll finish the last phase of maintenance chemotherapy over the next year, but the worst is over." She did it. Emma had survived. My baby had beaten cancer. And my parents had been absent for all of it. Not a single hospital visit in 13 months. Not one chemotherapy appointment. Not one difficult day when they'd shown up to help. They'd sent over $25,000 during that time. But they'd never shown up in person. 2 weeks after Emma was declared in remission, my parents called. "Sarah, we saw your Facebook post about Emma being cancer-free," my mother said, her voice excited. "That's such wonderful news. We're so relieved. We'd love to come visit now that she's better. Maybe this weekend? We can take her to that toy store she used to love. Buy her something special to celebrate." I was quiet for a long moment. "You want to visit now?" "Of course," my father said. "Now that the worst is over, now that she's recovering, we'd love to spend time with her again. We've missed her so much. We can start having our regular weekly visits again. Get back to normal, I repeated. "Mom, Dad, you weren't here for 13 months. You missed every single hospital stay. Every chemo appointment. Every scary moment. Every time she asked for you. You chose not to be here because it was too hard for you emotionally. And now that it's over, now that the difficult part is done, you want to just show up and be grandparents again like nothing happened?" "We were here," my mother protested. "We sent money. We sent gifts. We thought about you both constantly. We stayed away because we thought it was better for Emma not to see us upset. We were trying to protect her from our distress." "You were protecting yourselves," I said, "and in doing so you taught Emma that love is conditional. That family only shows up when things are easy. That when life gets really hard, the people you love most will abandon you." She's 7 years old and she learned that lesson from her own grandparents. "That's not fair," my father said. "We did what we could. We helped financially. Not everyone can handle being around serious illness. We have our own limitations. You should be grateful we helped at all instead of criticizing how we help." "Grateful?" I asked, my voice rising. "You want me to be grateful that you sent checks while my daughter fought cancer without her grandparents? While I went through the worst experience of my life essentially alone except for friends and coworkers. You want gratitude for doing the absolute minimum? If you don't want us in Emma's life, just say so," my mother said, her voice turning cold. "Don't punish us for having boundaries and protecting our mental health. We have every right to see our granddaughter. Now that she's recovered. We're her family." "You're not her family," I said. "Family shows up. Family is there when things are hard. You're just people she used to know who chose to disappear when she needed you most. And I'm not letting you waltz back in now that the difficult part is over. You don't get to miss the fight and show up for the victory celebration. That's not how this works." I hung up. They called back immediately. I didn't answer. They called 17 times over the next 3 days. I blocked their numbers. They showed up at my apartment 4 days after that phone call. I answered the door to find them standing there with wrapped presents and nervous smiles. "Sarah, please," my mother said. "We need to talk about this. We need to work this out. Emma's our granddaughter. We love her. We want to be part of her life. Where were you?" I asked. "For 13 months, where were you?" "We were protecting ourselves from trauma," my father said. "We were doing what we needed to do for our own mental health. That doesn't mean we don't love Emma. It just means we have limitations." "Your limitations meant my 6-year-old went through cancer without her grandparents," I said. "Your mental health was more important than her need for family support. Your comfort was more important than her fighting for her life. Those were your choices. Now I'm making mine. You're not coming back into her life. She's been through enough. She doesn't need to be hurt by you again when the next difficult thing happens and you decide it's too hard for you emotionally." "You can't keep us from our granddaughter," my mother said, her voice hardening. "We have rights. We can get a lawyer. We can fight you on this." "Do it," I said. "Get a lawyer. Fight me. Let's go to court and explain to a judge why you abandoned your granddaughter during cancer treatment, because it was too emotionally difficult for you. I'm sure that'll go great." They didn't leave. They kept arguing, kept justifying, kept insisting they had the right to see Emma now that she was better. Finally, I held up a hand. "Wait here, I want to show you something." I went inside and retrieved Emma's hospital journal. Throughout her treatment, her child life specialist had encouraged her to write or draw her feelings. Emma had filled a notebook with crayon drawings, dictated entries, and eventually her own writing as she got older and stronger. I had kept it carefully, knowing someday she might want to look back and remember her own bravery. I flipped to an entry from month 5 of treatment, one of the hardest periods. Emma had written it herself in shaky letters after a particularly difficult day. "Dear Grandma and Grandpa, where are you? Mommy says. You're busy, but I'm scared and I want you here. Don't you love me anymore? Did I do something bad? The medicine makes me throw up a lot, and my hair fell out, and I look funny, but I'm still me. Please come visit. I miss you so much. I'm trying to be brave, but it's really hard. I wish you were here to hug me. Love, Emma." I handed the letter to my mother. She read it, and started crying immediately. My father read over her shoulder, his face going pale. "Sarah, we didn't know," my mother whispered. "We didn't know she felt like this. We thought we were doing the right thing by staying away." She asked about you constantly for the first 6 months, I said. "She wrote you letters that I never sent, because you made it clear you didn't want to be involved. She drew you pictures that I saved in a box because there was no one to give them to. She cried herself to sleep asking why you didn't love her anymore. And you didn't know because you chose not to know. You chose not to visit. You chose not to call. You chose not to be there. Those were active choices you made every single day for 13 months. We made a mistake," my father said, his voice shaking. "We were wrong. We should have been there. But please, give us another chance. Let us try to make this right. We want to be in Emma's life. We want to be her grandparents again." "No," I said firmly, "because the next time life gets hard, and it will get hard again because that's life, you'll disappear again. When Emma needs surgery for something or faces another health crisis or goes through something difficult, you'll decide it's too hard for you emotionally, and you'll protect yourselves instead of showing up. I can't let her go through that again. I can't let her learn to count on you just so you can abandon her the next time things aren't easy." "We wouldn't do that," my mother protested. "We've learned. We understand now how wrong we were." "You understood it was wrong when you were doing it," I said. "I told you repeatedly that I needed you. That Emma needed you. You knew. You just prioritized your comfort over her needs. That's who you are. And I have to protect my daughter from who you are." "So you're going to keep our granddaughter from us forever?" my father asked. "Over one mistake? 13 months of daily choices to stay away isn't one mistake," I said. "It's a pattern. It's proof of who you are when things get difficult. And yes, I'm keeping Emma from people who taught her that love is conditional, that family abandons you when you need them most, that being sick makes you unworthy of care from the people who claim to love you. She's 7 years old and she's survived cancer. She doesn't need to survive your version of love too." I took the journal back and closed the door. They stood on my doorstep for another 10 minutes, knocking occasionally, pleading through the door. Eventually they left. That was 1 month ago. Since then, they've tried everything. More calls from new numbers. Letters sent to my apartment. Emails to my work account. They even approached Rachel at the grocery store asking her to mediate, to convince me to let them see Emma. Rachel told them to leave her alone or she'd file harassment charges. 2 weeks ago, they followed through on their threat. A lawyer sent me a letter demanding grandparent visitation rights. In Colorado, grandparents can petition for visitation under certain circumstances. My parents were arguing they had an established relationship with Emma before her illness, and that I was unreasonably denying them access now. The letter demanded I agree to supervised visits or they'd take me to court. I hired my own attorney. A woman named Patricia Chen, who specialized in family law and who'd dealt with grandparent rights cases before. They have almost no chance of winning this, Patricia told me after reviewing everything. Colorado courts prioritize parental rights. Grandparents have to prove that visitation is in the child's best interest, and that denying it would harm the child. Given that they voluntarily withdrew from her life for over a year during a medical crisis, arguing that their absence now is harming her isn't going to work. They'll argue they have rights because they had a relationship with her before, I said. They'll probably say I'm being vindictive. Let them argue that in court, Patricia said. Bring the journal. Bring Emma's letters and drawings. Bring testimony from the hospital staff about how many times you were there alone with no family support. Bring your friends who stepped up when your parents stepped back. Let a judge see the full picture of their abandonment and decide if those are people who deserve court-ordered access to your child. The court date is set for next month. My parents' attorney has been aggressive, filing motions and demanding depositions. They're fighting hard to get access to Emma. Meanwhile, Emma herself has moved on. She rarely mentions them anymore. When she does, it's without emotion. Grandma and Grandpa used to visit before I was sick, she'll say casually. But they don't come anymore. She doesn't ask why. She's accepted their absence the way she accepted losing her hair and missing school and all the other losses cancer brought. Just one more thing that used to be part of her life but isn't anymore. Rachel has been incredible through all of this, not just during Emma's treatment but now during the legal battle. Those people are delusional if they think a judge will give them rights after what they did, she said last week over coffee. They abandoned a sick child. There's no coming back from that. They think sending money was enough, I said. They think financial support equals being present. They can't understand why I'm so angry when they helped financially. Because money isn't presence, Rachel said. Money isn't holding Emma's hand during a spinal tap. Money isn't sitting with her at 3 a.m. when she's vomiting from chemo. Money isn't being there day after day when everything is scary and uncertain. They outsourced their grandparenting to their checkbook, and now they're shocked you won't let them back in now that the hard part is over. Emma's doing well now. She's back in school, her hair is growing back, she's regaining weight and energy. She still has maintenance chemotherapy for another year, but it's low dose and outpatient. Her prognosis is excellent. She's expected to live a completely normal life. She talks about cancer sometimes, matter-of-factly, the way kids talk about things they've experienced. When I was sick, she'll say, or during my cancer time. She's resilient in ways that break my heart and make me proud simultaneously. She's also formed deep bonds with the people who were there for her. Rachel is Aunt Rachel now, someone Emma adores and trusts. Tom the neighbor is Mr. Tom who takes her for ice cream and lets her help in his garden. Jessica from my work is Miss Jessica who Emma talks to on the phone, and who still brings us dinner occasionally just because. These people aren't related to Emma by blood. But they're her family. They showed up when showing up was hard. They stayed when staying was difficult. They loved her when she was sick and scared and not the easiest person to be around. That's family. That's what my parents could have been if they'd chosen to be. Last week, Emma came home from school with a family tree project. We have to draw our family, she explained, getting out her crayons. Everyone we're related to, and everyone who's important to us. She drew me at the center. Then she drew Rachel on one side and labeled her Aunt Rachel. She drew Tom on the other side as Mr. Tom. She drew Jessica below as Miss Jessica. She drew her oncologist, Dr. Martinez, because she saved my life, so she's family. She drew 2 nurses from the hospital who'd been particularly kind to her. Then she stopped and looked at the paper. Should I draw Grandma and Grandpa? She asked. Do you want to? I asked carefully. She thought for a long moment. They used to be my family, she said. But they weren't there when I was sick. Aunt Rachel says family is people who show up when things are hard. Grandma and Grandpa didn't show up. So I don't think they're my family anymore. She didn't draw them. She finished her family tree with pictures of our cat, our goldfish, and a rainbow because rainbows are pretty, and they make me happy, so they're part of my family too. I took a photo of that family tree. I'm planning to bring it to court next month. Let the judge see who a 7-year-old cancer survivor considers her family. Let my parents see that they're not on it, not because I poisoned their relationship, but because they abandoned it themselves. I'm not sorry for keeping them away. I'm not sorry for protecting Emma from people who proved they'll disappear when things get hard. I'm not sorry for teaching her that she deserves better than conditional love from people who claim family status but don't show up with family actions. My parents are angry. They feel victimized. They tell relatives that I'm being cruel, that I'm punishing them for having boundaries and protecting their mental health. Some relatives agree with them. Some think I should forgive and let them back into Emma's life. But those relatives weren't there either. They weren't at the hospital. They weren't helping with medical bills or meals or rides to appointments. They watched from a distance, same as my parents, and now they think they have opinions worth sharing about how I should handle my parents' abandonment. They don't. The relatives who were there, my Aunt Carol who flew out twice to help, my cousin Mike who sent care packages monthly, they understand. They support my decision. They see that this isn't about holding a grudge. It's about protecting a child who's already been through enough. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been abandoned during a medical crisis or discovered that family isn't always the people you're related to, leave a comment. Subscribe if you believe that protecting your children from people who hurt them is more important than maintaining family relationships. Share this with someone who needs to hear that you don't owe access to your children to people who abandoned them when they needed support most. Remember, showing up is not optional when someone you love is fighting for their life. I can't handle it emotionally is not an acceptable reason to abandon a sick child. I helped financially doesn't substitute for physical and emotional presence. And I want back in now that the hard part is over doesn't erase 13 months of choosing comfort over showing up. My parents made their choice. They chose their emotional comfort over their granddaughter's need for family during cancer treatment. Now I'm making mine. I'm choosing to protect my daughter from people who taught her that love is conditional, that family disappears when you're not easy to be around, that being sick makes you unworthy of care from the people who claim to love you most. Emma beat cancer. She's a survivor. She's strong and brave and resilient. And she deserves to be surrounded by people who'll be there for her when life gets hard again, because life always gets hard again. My parents proved they're not those people. So they don't get access to her now that she's healthy and easy and fun to be around. They don't get to miss the fight and show up for the victory party. They don't get to skip the hard part and pretend it didn't happen. The court case next month will determine if they get legally enforced visitation rights. I'm confident we'll win based on everything Patricia has explained. But even if we don't, even if a judge orders supervised visits, my parents will never get back what they lost. They'll never be the grandparents Emma adores and trusts. They'll never have the bond they could have had if they'd just shown up. They traded 13 months of being needed for a lifetime of being strangers who happened to be related. That was their choice. Now they have to live with the consequences. And Emma and I get to build a life with our real family, the people who showed up, who stayed, who proved that love isn't about biology. It's about being there when being there is hard.